As an attorney from New York State, but I'm also a coach, but today I'm wearing my attorney hat because I finally launched my immigration business in South Carolina. I'm a New York State licensed attorney. I do ancestry work up in New York State, helping my clients connect with their ancestry, but in South Carolina, I'm allowed to practice federal law, and immigration falls under federal law, so I am now have my hat in the ring here to practice immigration. Anyway, so that being said, I figured an easy topic to start with, and no matter what we talk about in immigration, it's always controversial, but marriage, when someone gets married, right, someone gets married to a U.S. citizen, how do they get their green card, what do we have to look for, and things like that. And I'm going to tell you some interesting stories over the years of my career here. I just didn't have to know how to, here we go. So in immigration, there's a lot of types of different things. We hear about visas, we hear about refugee, asylum, green cards, and citizenship. I sort of put this in the order of the way things are supposed to happen or more likely to happen. People come here on a work visa. There's visas. They come here as workers or maybe as visitors or maybe that 90-day fiancé. Did you guys watch that show? Did anybody watch that series?
Is there such a show?
There was. Did anybody watch it in here? No? You did? Okay. I didn't want to watch it. When I finally watched it on an international flight because I had nothing else to do. So it was very theatrical. But so fiancé visas, refugees are people who leave their home country. Let's say they're being politically persecuted. They move into a third country, let's say from Syria to Turkey. Now they're declared refugees, then they want to be able to come into this country. Those are your refugees right there. Asylum are people who do come from their country. They come into the U.S. or touching U.S. land, and now they're saying, hey, I can't go back. They're going to kill me. They're going to jail me, whatever. Venezuela might be an example of that today. Based on my conversations with people lately. And then green cards, that's the ultimate goal for a lot of people. When they come here, they want to get their green cards, and then after green cards, you get citizenship. And that's what we're talking about marriage, because I think that's a great way to show how things happen. So if anyone in here knows someone who's married a U.S. citizen, you've probably heard their story, how difficult it was, how long it took, what's going on. So let's see where I'm at here. All right, so a couple that becomes engaged has to decide, okay, hey, we're engaged, we want to get married. I'm like, okay, where are you going to get married? Well, we're going to go back to Italy where he's from. We're going to get married there. I would say, okay, great, but he can't come back into the United States until he gets his green card in Italy, in our embassy in Italy. What do you mean? We want to have this big wedding. We want to get married in Italy. It's going to be so romantic. I'm like, yeah, but if you leave the country and you get married, he can't come back in with you like that. We have to go through a certain process. So that's when I look at them and I say, if they're in the U.S., I say, have a little civil marriage. Go to the justice of the peace, get married, stay in the country, and we'll do your green card from here. But if you leave the country and get married, you cannot re-enter as a married couple without having issues. And I'll tell you what happened last week. I got a phone call when I was up in Syracuse. This guy called me. I think he was from Grenada. And he said, me and my American wife, we got married in Grenada. Then we came into the U.S. Then we applied for the green card application, and I just got denied. I said, what do you mean you got denied? He goes, well, 2 days ago I got a letter from immigration saying that my application for green card has been denied because they said I committed fraud. And the fraud came in because I didn't ask the details. I knew at that moment I couldn't help him because the cat was already out of the bag. I want to help people before it happens, not after. But I refer them to good people that could help them. What happened was, I'm going to guess, is that when he came to the U.S., you go through inspection. You go through customs, right? They ask questions. I don't know what questions they asked this couple, but whatever happened, CIS or immigration determined there was some fraud at the border, and then he was denied, and now he's got a bigger problem than if he had hired an attorney to help him walk him through the process. That's why I tell people, if you're going to get involved in immigration, please, even if you don't hire the attorney, talk to an attorney. We give a lot of free consultations, and there's also agencies that do it pro bono. So if you know anyone who's getting married and they think they're smarter than the immigration system, they're going to get caught. So that's a big question. Where are you getting married? When can they get married? I already talked about that. You got to wait there's something called a 30, 60, 90-day rule in the U.S., meaning that if you apply for a green card within 30 days, there's a presumption you may have committed fraud or lied. 60 days is a gray area. If you wait at least 90 days where you get married, there's less questions asked. And I don't want to get into the details of that, but just know that people should talk to an immigration lawyer before they get married. A couple has to prove they married for love, not for an immigration benefit. They're not getting married because the guy wants a green card, the girl wants a green card. It's because they actually love each other. They're going to ask all these great questions. You're going to be interviewed by the government, and the government's going to ask you, how did you two meet? How long have you known each other? How many times have you been married? Do you have any children from other relationships? Is the fiancé in the U.S. working and can support the two of you? Can the U.S. that's the next question, details about other lives. About 10, 12 years ago, I had this guy call me on my cell phone, not my office number. He calls me and he goes, hey, I got your number. And I said, where'd you get my number? He goes, on the internet. Oh, no, God gave it to me. He kept saying, God sent me your number. And I said, okay. I said, what's going on? He says, well, we got married and we had our interview and they separated us. When I hear someone's been separated at their interview, I know that's a huge red flag. And he says, and they denied our visa or my green card because they said that we didn't tell the truth. I didn't want to handle that again because, again, the cat's out of the bag and I can't help them as much. But I invited him into the office because there was another attorney in the office who did immigration who didn't mind complicated cases. So he comes in, him and his wife, me and the other attorney were interviewing him. And as the facts come out, it turned out when they were separated, the officers asked him, where was your wedding reception? Where did you go celebrate afterwards? One said Chinese restaurant, the other one said Italian. And there was more inconsistencies that kept coming out, but that was one that stuck with me. And so Craig looks at the guy and he says to him, hey, God may have brought you to Caterina, but only God can help you out of this mess. So it's like there's nothing we can do at this point because there's too many inconsistencies. So we referred him probably to another company that could try to help them. They'll be interviewed. You have to prove it's bona fide. There are red flags. About 10 to 15% denial rate, that's what we find. Sometimes that number goes up or down depending on how the interviews go. If it goes well, they'll be issued what's called a conditional green card. So yeah, you got approved, you get a green card. You're not really getting a permanent green card. You're getting a conditional green card. I don't know about you guys, but in New York State, when my kids got licenses at 16, 17 years of age, it was a junior license. Do they have that around here? It's like you know what I'm talking about? It's like a junior license. It's not a permanent driver's license. The same thing with green cards for a person who marries a U.S. citizen. It's not a permanent green card. It's a conditional green card. You got 2 years to prove that you're continuing to build on this marriage, that you're continuing to build a life together. You passed the first hurdle, but now you got to get to the second hurdle, and that is that you are continuing to build a life together. And it's at that point in 2 years, you have to apply for what's called a removal of conditions. You want to say, hey, I want to remove this condition. I want to prove to you that we are a happily married couple, and we want our permanent green card. So that's how that happens in marriage. And then to get citizenship, right? So now you're married, you're happily married, A person who marries a U.S. citizen has a great benefit, and that is normally you got to wait 5 years to apply for citizenship if you get it through other ways, but if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you only have a 3-year wait. So it's a much faster process than going through, getting a citizenship. Let's say I have a U.S. citizenship and I want my parents from Italy to come here. My parents, and I get their green card, and they're in here legally, they got their green card, they have to wait 5 years. Married couples only have to wait 3 years. So that's another beautiful benefit about marriage. But the bottom line is that people need to be talking to an attorney. I can't tell you how many horror stories I've heard over the years that people try to outsmart the system or didn't think they need an attorney, and it blows up in their faces, and we're trying to put the genie back in the bottle after it's too late. That's about it. That's my whole thing. I talked really fast because Karen gave me 10 minutes. But that's my contact info. It's hard to read. It's kind of blurry. But if you know anyone who's got immigration questions in the community, just send them my way. I'll be happy to talk with them. I offer free consultations. Like I said, better talk to an attorney and get some facts and knowledge before they go do something on their own. I can tell you have a question, Barry.
People from U.S. territories exempt, like someone from Puerto Rico?
Yes. Yeah. You can, it's funny you should bring that up. Cuba, what used to be a great country to be from. Is anybody in here Cuban at all? No. Until 2016, I think it was, we had something called like a wet foot, dry foot policy with Cuba, which meant that we favored the people of that country because of the, the tyranny of their government. So if you came here on a boat and you touched Miami, it's Florida land, you have a wet foot, so you touch wet land, you touch your, Florida coming off a boat, you wait 1 year, 1 day, and you can apply for a green card. That's one of the few times of an exception where somebody actually kind of comes in illegally, but it was okay. That doesn't exist anymore. It was canceled in 2016. But there's a dry foot one that says if you fly in, so you fly in or you come in on a boat, but you're not being inspected at a border, then you can apply for a green card if you're Cuban 1 year and 1 day after you enter the U.S. So we do have some exceptions, but Puerto Rico is definitely a favorable place where we don't have to establish anything. If you're born in Puerto Rico, you're considered a U.S. citizen, or you apply for citizenship recognition. That's a great question. How did you know about that?
I have some friends in Puerto Rico, and I'm actually considering, I should say, looking into. My understanding is, as a U.S. citizen, you can establish residency in Puerto Rico.